Well, let's just listen to music on my high-end stereo system.
Nice. Let's crank it.
Crank it? I only use it to listen to podcasts. Today on The Moth, how a single...
So while I'm sitting here waiting for my parts to arrive to make my changes, I was back here working on the speakers and all they were playing, and I noticed that a lot of air was coming out through this door. And it was mainly because the weather stripping or whatever they used around it. I think actually they used plumbing putty, weather stripping, and something else. I'm not even sure over the years that the repairs have been done. That wasn't me. I never did this. So now I just stripped it all off. I'm putting new weather stripping on, and this should seal them up real nice and tight. Well, I was just jamming and I was checking to see if there's any air coming from the back of the speaker, and it all looks good. I think our new weather stripping is working excellent. Alright, get a good look at this, because in a second this is going to change. Okay, I got a box. Got some new wires laying out there. Somebody needs to tell me this stuff is getting out of hand. Okay, that went well. Nice little test there. Let's take it out to the garage and see what's going on. On a side note, I was running my tweeters up here on just the receiver itself on the B speakers and sent it into protection mode. I do have to switch over to the full power or whatever it is, not the 4 ohm switch. I don't want to have that limiter on my receiver at all for the other amps here. But I just had them plugged into the Bs, and no, the receiver isn't going to deal with a 4 ohm load. So we're going to go ahead and jump them over to the speaker. We're out of the garage, and everybody welcome our newest addition. Is a Crown CTS 4200 4-channel, 250 watts at 4 ohms. Yeah, it's a bad boy, and it's going to run the whole top end of my system. What I've already done is I've figured a way of taking this ear off, like this one is here. It's a little different than the QSC. It's not necessarily a bracket here, so what I had to do is actually just cut it off at the notches, and then I back cut the first piece, because there's 2 pieces here, one here and one here. So I just back cut this piece and folded this one over, and it came out like so. It looks a little bit rough right now because I was doing some sanding to it. I need to repaint this little corner basically, but no sharp edges, nothing to catch your hand on, and it'll look like that from the front, which I'm pretty cool with. I still got to get that ear off and clean the whole thing up and clean it out too. So. You musicians are starting to disappoint me. I bought an equalizer about a year ago. It looked like somebody threw up inside of it. This thing's immaculate. It's got to be 20 years old. I mean, it's got some scuffs and marks on the outside, but I mean, even this cobweb here is for me just doing the glue. Amazing. Alright, I'm going to get this thing finished up. Alright, here's our amp installed. Looking pretty darn good. 250 watts at 4 ohms per channel, so it's got plenty of headroom. As we showed you before, we turned these pieces inside themselves. And I'll tell you, it don't look so bad. When you put it up next to my CD player, which is about as big, it doesn't look really that far out of place. We got our little feet on. I actually put felt underneath them so it won't actually stick to the wood over time in case it does get hot. It makes it easier to slide it in and out, because actually the gains are on the back of it. That's one of the bad sides of the whole amp, honestly, is the gains are actually on the back. I wish they were on the front like the QSC down here, but I figure I'll get them set and I'll adjust the QSC out instead of actually vice versa, which I would have preferred to do with the top end. Now that CD gets it going. I'm telling you, there's a big difference between what's recorded today and what's recorded a few years ago. It's insane. I mean, I was just listening to the CD. I could barely get it above 1/3, maybe up to half volume at maximum. And this one here, I can pretty much turn it all the way around backwards if I want to. And I've got a lot of them that are like that, and I've got a lot of them that are like the other way. So I know it's not uncommon, that's for sure. But with this lower level CD, so to speak, we got things moving here. and something I have noticed real offhand is that since I have my tweeters piggybacked off of the tweeters on this, it ends up being a parallel, which brings it down to about 2 ohms, and when I'm jamming, I tend to start clipping a little bit on the amp. Not sure what I'm going to do about the tweeters yet, because they almost deserve their own amp at this point. I mean, 250 watts per channel at 4 ohms, 240 watts per channel at 4 ohms. Right now, I'm in the neighborhood of 2,000 watts pushing these. Do I really need another 400 watts just to push another set of tweeters? I have to say, after the first amp buy, I was a little disappointed. I mean, I really just thought it was going to be what comes out of that being right off the shelf and just right in like a power booster would be, but it really did change the sound. I mean, it lost its whole top end for some reason. I do have to say, I do love the fact that you can adjust the gains individually on all 4 speakers, top and bottom now. That's a real big plus for me. It kind of reminds me of a fader system on an equalizer inside of a car. You know, you can fade it from front to rear, get more bass. Thanks, Rue. And you can get more of a bass hit or more of a, you know, high tones and quieter or what have you with the 4-speaker sound. You know, it's the way it was when I was a kid. The front speakers were always kind of lame. The rear speakers were kind of the ones that hit. And you kind of get that same effect now because I can adjust a little bit more bass. I can bring it back. I don't know. They got real bassy. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was used to them for the last 30 years being not so bassy. And then on top of that, like I said, the high ends were just gone. So we had to do something, and we ended up going with this crown. It's fine. I mean, that's all I can say. One thing you have to be cautious about with this rack equipment is the fact that its size. Now, the QSC down here is 14 inches from front to the back. This one here is actually 17 inches from front to back, and it's almost as big as my CD player. And being the fan is in the back, I'm still working out whether I want it to blow out the back or out the front. People say don't make it blow out the front. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of constrained back there really bad. So, I'm not sure. We haven't worked that one out yet. But, as I said, it does really nice with the top end. It's just these tweeters are overloading it a little bit. So we're going to work on that. So 100% disclosure, we got to say that, yeah, it wasn't the most successful trip we've ever made. Made a lot of changes and made a lot of detours along the way, but I am pretty happy about where I'm at now. I got to say, I can basically ring the volume all the way up to wherever I want to, and if I wanted to, blow speakers apart. So no, that's not my intention. But I want to make sure that they have ample power, and the rest can just sit in the amp for all I care. I just want ample power at 4 ohms. Could it have driven both sets of RS IIIas? Probably. And but you know, I was already down this rabbit hole, so I might as well just kind of play it out until it comes out the other side. And yeah, I've got bi-amped RS IIIa Infinities. I have 2,000 watts going to them, and the next thing is, though, I have to finish up a lot of loose ends. Alright, let's pull this back a little bit here. Alright, I ain't gonna put you through it again, but I've been playing around for the last few days, and I'm telling you, I prefer actually the QSC on the top end as opposed to the CTS 4200 by Crown. I don't know what's going on here because I didn't like the top end from the QSC when it was running the whole deal, but now I seem to enjoy it much better. And it gives me a lot more controls, being that the gains are on the front here. I can actually kind of get them paired up a little better with the bass, because it's really hard with the bass. You just start pulling it out and it just starts disappearing. It's weird. I know this is turning into an extraordinarily long set of videos, and it just seems like this is the truth of the matter. I mean, when you don't have stereo stores anymore and stuff like that, you're left up to your own devices to experiment, and that's what I'm doing in this experiment now. To be aesthetically pleasing and a little more long, way I'm thinking is this guy needs to go up top, this guy needs to go down here, everything needs to be disconnected, reconnected, because you can't pull the shelf out because it's blocked in. So there's no, oops, swap. That ain't going to work either. It's also going to help with cooling because this guy cools out the back. This equalizer is only about a third of the way through the actual size of the depth of these things. It'll allow a lot more air to circulate out behind it, as opposed to the CD player here is actually almost smashed all the way in the back with the actual amp here, and there isn't much place for the air to go, to be honest. It's been kind of like being drawn back through this amp down here, and it's not the most opportune setup. So one last song and I'm gonna go, and just like that, there it is. Restacked everything basically, and yeah, I'm much happier with this QSC doing high end. I don't know why, but it seems to work out real well, and the crown does the bottom end well. And it's really not going to get that hot anyway because it's only pushing out 8 ohms instead of 4 ohms. Just the way it works out. Also went down here and I got my trusty drill here and drilled myself a nice little hole back there. I got a couple of these desk grommets. And this little piece pops out, and it's actually spring loaded, so you can cover it back up if you want to. It'll look like that one if I don't use it at all, or I can pass wires through, big ones like the power plug and such, and yeah, choke it down to where it's just a tiny little hole going through. This here is our one and only room treatment, quote unquote. It's an office whiteboard that we picked up real cheap. Put some cork on the inside and put a dartboard inside. Nice thing about it is these panels here are also, I don't know, some kind of material, and you can deflect them any which way you want them to deflect the sounds. I find it's just leaving it open, it works real well. Finally this came in. So a quick fix for my power cord here. As you can see, I had to kind of bend it and twist it and cut it and do all kinds of different things because it's stuck straight out like so. Well, I ordered one. It had to come in from China, and it took about 2 weeks to get here, but that's a much lower profile than this guy, that's for sure. And there we are. Quick and easy fix. Well, we are where we are. Was it an expected place to be? No, I don't think so. Is it a bad place? I don't think so either. It does have its quirks. I gotta say, if you're gonna use rack equipment, you have to be prepared. It is not for low-level volume critical listening. I will say that. If you kick everything in the ass, so to speak, yeah, you can get all the nice high tones and everything you want out of it. And actually, I kind of think it excels at that because it doesn't want to go into clipping, even though you know things are trying to go into clipping. It's just, it has no problems with any of that. The real issue, as I said, is the low level volume. It does get the high tones a tad bit scratchy. If you're really into that low level, you know, apartment, I've only listened to when, you know, everybody's in bed kind of thing, you're not going to like this. But of course, you know, it's a lot of power too, so that's well beyond what you would need anyway. So in a perfect world, one of these days, I'm going to find me a 4-channel tube amp or whatever that will put out a crystal clear 200 watts, 4 channels for the top end of this. Until then, I'm compensating with frequency and such, and I can dump it on it, and it takes it and then actually comes out at a pleasant level, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But overall, this has been a very experiencing couple months and a lot of money into it. Not nearly as much as buying actual real amp. I mean, some of them guys for home amps go for, you know, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. I think I've got maybe $650 total in this whole thing, and that includes wiring and everything else. So the system is doable for now. It's got room for improvement still, and there may actually be another episode of a knob fixes Infinity loudspeakers in the future when I try to amp these guys up a little bit. But until then, I want to thank you all for coming along for this long journey. It'd be really cool if you would give this video a thumbs up and maybe subscribe to my channel. It always helps, you know, get to other people out there. There's plenty of Infinity owners, and this is the journey I'm making. Maybe somebody else can benefit from it. Thanks again.